Welcome to the Melrose Show, Season 2. Melrose here. If you listened to this intro before, you can click the forward button now 8 times to get to the start of this episode. Before this version of myself, I was many things. That included artist, fashion designer, professional model, TV personality, small business owner, real estate agent, the list goes on and on. All before finding my career in finance and in female empowerment. After all of that work in exploring different careers, I realized that the best place and the safest place to live is safely inside of myself and in my purpose. It was a wild ride to get to where I'm at today after living in many countries and many cities, trying to get to a version of myself that felt complete. I've found that growing and living in a space, in a community that wants to see you grow, allows for integration and allows for you to meet your authenticity with awareness and self-care. I want the same for you. Through my highly versatile career path and working with others along on their dreams, I decided to start this podcast to try to help people understand that life is not a race, it's a marathon. Career is not a ladder, it's a jungle gym, and that spirituality and spiritual equity in what we do with our lives, especially for women, matters. Because of that, we're launching Season 2, which is an integration podcast. We will be re-interviewing people from Season 1. If you hear someone on this podcast, the hopes are that they'll come back and expand their stories. We are one of the first integration podcasts where we let guests and hope guests will come back and expand their stories. This podcast supports an amazing group of women and human beings who are on a mission to help heal the planet in some way, whether it's through humans or art or all the other amazing ways that we can heal and help each other. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this journey with people from around the world who have self-actualized in some way. I hope that they will inspire you in your own authentic journey. Enjoy. Welcome to Season 2. Danielle Mills back in the house. I'm so excited to hear all your updates, but if you haven't listened to the first episode, go back and listen to it before this episode. I was suggesting that with all of our repeat guests, but let's just dive in. So, new mama, looking fabulous. You look younger than 3 years.
Oh, thank you. I feel like since we last spoke, now I'm Danielle Mills Walden because I'm married. I don't know if I was married the last time I spoke.
Okay, I don't so. Okay, so sorry, reintroduction.
Yes. So many amazing things. I guess the most recent thing that's kind of been like the biggest shift in my life has been the birth of my son, Otto, who is about to be 9 months old, which is just mind blowing because now he's going to be 9 months out after he was 9 months in. And I still to this day can't even believe that I'm a mom. Like I was that person that growing up, I was like, I don't know if I want to have kids. I'll probably adopt. Like the whole concept of like giving birth, being pregnant, all those things. It freaked me out. So like the fact that I actually did it and went through with it and went through the whole thing. I also had like a C-section. Like it was wild. It was a wild experience. And now I'm just like, I'm doing this mom thing now.
Okay, I mean, I watch you on Instagram. You're doing the mom thing very well. I'm
Thank
like
you.
watching you like work out. The baby's away. I'm so sad I missed you in Miami, but I will be back probably shortly because I live in Wyoming now and it's freezing cold all the
Oh
time.
my gosh.
It's beautiful though, don't get me wrong. But I am so grateful that we're finding this time because
Yes.
so curious how work is going, how being a mom works in with your schedule. This season is really starting to partner with a company that we're building to support female founders. So having you back on the podcast is so important for people to hear about your growth, hear how you run your business. I love that it's funny when you talk to athletes, they're like, I don't know about having kids because your body's like your work, right? So I'm excited to dive into that, like being a mother from the athlete's positive mindset. And then, yeah, just kind of anything else you want to share with us to give us the update. And then we'll have to plan an in-person again at some point.
I know. Or if I can come out to Wyoming, that would be dope. I've never been to that state. It's one of the
Well,
only
that's
states
really
I've not been to.
I don't have baby stuff yet, but there's all sorts of places that we can source things from for you. But guest room is open anytime. It's a magical place. I think it's great for kids to see winter. It's also, as an athlete, like as a not professional, but as an athlete, someone who loves sports, I always say the greatest thing my parents did for me was put me on skis when I was 2,
Mm.
snowboard when I was 10. But being able to do a sport that feels like walking and is like second nature and that's so nature oriented has been a huge blessing in my life. So we got to get Otto on some skis in the next year or so.
I'm all about that because I'll tell you this, that I never had the opportunity to ski. I've never skied myself
Okay, well,
because
I'll add you to my lesson chart then.
yeah, well, because I started playing tennis at such a young age. I started like kind of like to your point, like I started tennis at the age of 2. And since I got so ingrained with that, that became the focus. It was this fear of like, oh, you can't ski because then you could get hurt, then you could get injured. So I've always equated skiing or snowboarding with like injury, like life-threatening injury. So now that I'm like retired and I can do all these things I couldn't do, I'm like, I got to go back and take a lesson. And then for Otto, like if he starts at such a young age, he won't equate it like that. It'll be such a
Totally.
different experience, and then he'll know how to do it safely.
Although I have to say, picking up snowboarding at 10, at 41, turning 42 now, I really feel the snowboarding pain. And all of most of
Oh,
my friends who have snowboarded aggressively, we identify with each other because we're like, man, we really put our bodies through it. Like, we need some stem cells or something. So, yeah, skiing, though, I think skiing is great. I've gone back to skiing now, unless it dumps like 5 feet of snow. I do not go snowboarding anymore.
oh, okay. Well, then, we'll do the skiing maybe and
I
wait for the snowboarding.
it's just they're the way to learn skiing as an adult where you can just take it easy, you get your fundamentals and then you just every year build on it. I'm planning on being based in Wyoming forever. I love it here
Okay,
so much. So come on out. The invite is totally open.
okay. I want him to see snow too, so it'll be perfect.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. So, for those who aren't going to listen to the first episode and are just going to
Yeah,
dive right in because they're just on this season and they're digging it,
yeah.
give a little background. Why don't you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background about yourself and how we came to where you are at today?
Wow, okay. So let me take it back. I'm a retired professional tennis player. I played on the tour for 10 plus years all over the world. When I was 24 years old, I suffered a career ending injury where I ended up hurting my back. And after trying to do recovery, it just wasn't happening. So I ended up needing to retire. But throughout my whole tennis career and throughout my junior upbringing in the sport of tennis, I was always ingrained in mindset training. And that's something that as an athlete kind of comes second nature. But once I retired and I kind of started doing other things, I realized, okay, my mindset and how I think about things is kind of like my secret power to be my best. And I've kind of really honed in a lot of those skills from being an athlete and kind of developing that champion's mindset. And I've applied that into a business that I started called Headstrong, which is a mindset mentorship company. But then there was a shift. During COVID, there was a little bit of a shift where tons of people were experiencing layoffs and issues when it comes to the job world. And I had always had a lot of success on the platform LinkedIn. And I always leveraged this platform when it came to trying to find roles, trying to find jobs. And my father was actually the one who said, well, you've been having a lot of success. Why don't you write a book? I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, take what you've been doing and write a book about it, and kind of just let it be. And he was an author himself. So in his mind, he's like, oh, that's something easy. Just do it. And I was like, okay. So I put pen to paper. It took me about a month and a half and got my book on Amazon, How to Master LinkedIn. Ended up becoming a LinkedIn expert. Now I help people with their LinkedIn, how to get recruited, how to have hiring managers in their inbox, how to stand out, how to brand themselves. So I learned from like the mindset side of things into what I do with the career coaching I do with LinkedIn and branding. And that's what I do now. I basically help individuals, but also companies. A lot of companies will hire me to do workshops with their teams and masterminds and things like that. So that's how I got to where I am today, even though it was not a conventional path, but I love it. I love being able to help people.
I think when you were on the podcast, your book was just coming out. So
Ah, okay.
so we are now following up with how your
Yes.
had like taken a pathway through to being a leader in this space. I agree
Yes.
with you. I think LinkedIn is so valuable. It's so important. I honestly spend the most time on LinkedIn of all the social media platforms. I think being a creator in those spaces, especially LinkedIn, is really important. I think also just this message of believing in yourself and being headstrong. It's so important. It actually has become so normal for people to self deprecate and to talk badly about themselves, even in a professional arena.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and I think it's good to share what you've overcome trauma wise. But I think if you're standing on a pedestal complaining or putting out negative energy, that's going to attract the same thing. So I think it's really great to have people out there doing what you're doing. I think everyone could use some also external eyes on their LinkedIn.
I always say this when I start working with somebody, they're always so hesitant to want to put out the bragging moments of their career. And you have to really
Right.
think that your LinkedIn is like, this is that accolades page where somebody can, they're only going to look at it briefly. First of all, they're only going to look at your picture and your headline is the first thing is that's not interesting. They're just going to swipe right past you. But if they even get to your page, this is where you want to highlight all of the things that make you special, all the things that make you successful, what makes you unique because that's going to pique somebody's interest. And if you're not even necessarily looking for like a new role or a new opportunity, it's great from a networking standpoint and from a business standpoint. So many business deals are done because of LinkedIn. And for myself personally, so many opportunities have come from it just because A, my profile is optimized, and B, I put content out on that platform. And so many people don't. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, what? You can put content on LinkedIn? I thought this was just like a virtual resume. No, this is the place you need to start putting content out and coin yourself as an expert in your field and continue to build off of that because people will resonate with it.
Well, a few years ago, like when I was launching my financial firm, my best friend, I went and spent a month post COVID with her in Barbados to see my
Ooh,
godchildren. I hadn't seen my godchildren through COVID. And she said to me, I think you really need to switch from Instagram and Facebook over to LinkedIn. Like a lot of the things I hear you saying and talking about are actually really important. And you should be focusing on LinkedIn. And needed that nudge a little bit. I needed that like
yeah,
permission slip to go in there and like say who I am. But I
yeah.
also think a lot of people think it's the same with like when you have a deck when you're going out to raise money, right? A lot of people think I'm going to build this deck and then I'm going to raise this money. And people think I'm going to put up my resume and then people are going to think I'm great. And it's like, this is your LinkedIn page is a living, breathing organism. You should always be going in and adding things and changing things. I love that you're a reminder for us to do that, to
Yeah.
highlight about ourselves, like what we're up to. So what's the protocol on like if you become a mother, like the biggest job in the world? Does that go on your LinkedIn? What's the protocol there?
It's funny. I have not necessarily updated my headline or anything with like mom or anything on it. But what I have done, which is intentional, is I will incorporate being a mom into my content flow and into what I'm doing because this is a huge part of me and what I'm doing. And also, I do that to hopefully inspire some other people that your kids are important, you love them, and it's not to the point where it's like a Facebook page where you're just like, that turns people off. They don't want to see all of that, but
Totally.
sprinkle it in here and there, sprinkle it in here and there, how you kind of juggle it all. What are you doing behind the scenes, mentally, how you do things. That can be pretty cool and pretty valuable, but I'd say like use it as a sprinkle, not as like a dump it on top of everything.
Yeah. Sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Yes,
I
yes, yes, yes,
feel
yes.
I feel
Because it's a
like
lot.
also when you get to this age, like late 30s, early 40s, your friends' social media has become overtaken with their children. Like,
Yes.
I want
Yes.
to see what my friends are doing, and they're just doing the family thing. So,
Yes.
like now following their kids, and I actually really love this person and what they stood for in our 20s, and I want to
Yeah.
see where they're going. So, LinkedIn is the one page where you kind of integrate that and tell people what you're
Mhm.
accomplishing with your family. I think women should talk more about mothering and how it relates to career or choosing to not be a mother and focusing on your career and what that feels like and what the pros and cons of that. But
Can
yeah,
dive into that too.
I like that LinkedIn is this place where you can go and like not be bombarded. with things.
Yeah, not as much necessarily as the Instagram and the Facebook. Because wow, let me tell you, like it is a big transition. I had the opportunity to have like a decently long maternity leave of like 5 months where I could just like solely focus on like being a mom.
Oh,
And
amazing.
before going into it, I was thinking because I don't know any better. I'm an only child. I hadn't had a ton of experience with babies in general. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is going to be this period of time where I'm going to be able to really get focused on my business and do all these things in conjunction with. No, I didn't get to do any of the things that I thought I was going to do because I was so consumed with keeping this baby alive. I was like, how do I do this?
Right. No one realizes the first 3 years of a child's life is just keeping them alive. Right.
Keeping them alive. And then once he got a little bit older and he was able to go to a daycare that's like 2 blocks away from my house, which is so
Okay.
convenient,
Yeah.
that's what got my mental back, and then I realized that I am not the stay-at-home mom type. As much as I, like, eh, thought that that was gonna be so glamorous and beautiful and just like, "Oh, I, like, clean and could do all the things," which I still have to do, but then I was like, "Okay, no. I am somebody who needs to be on the move. I need to have goals. I need to have things that I'm trying to do. I need to be striving for something." So, literally, I'm the busiest I've ever been now, and I'm maximizing the time that I have so effectively because I have such a little window of time to maximize outside of the time that I'm with my baby. So it's made me like on hyperdrive even more. So that's been a big adjustment, but it's really helped make me a lot more focused and more intentional.
I think that's so right. Like the one thing I noticed with my friends, especially when I hung out with them when the kids were babies, was like how time rich I am.
Y-
And it's
Yes.
one of the
And
reasons
this,
I started my own firm and like have started multiple companies in the last few years. Cause I'm like, if I'm not having kids right now, I have this luxury that my friends do not have. And I have to actually value my time in that way. And it really makes you appreciate your time, even just observing
yes.
like new mothers.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Yes. Right now, my parents are watching my son right now, and it's like, I have both hands. I can like speak to you. I feel like I'm on top of the
right.
world.
Even, like, physically you're liberated, right? Not just
Yes. Just
mentally.
like to have a good adult conversation. So it's definitely like made me really value any amount of time that I do have because it's like I can't waste this moment that I have right now because literally I may not have it because I'll be busy with something else. So I've been looking forward to this conversation with you because I'm like, oh, we're gonna like chit chat and go back
Uh,
into all the things. And yeah,
okay,
I'm
so we
so
don't
pumped.
have to keep talking about momming, but the last thing I
Yeah.
will say about that is I do see you doing it and you're so beautiful. I feel like a lot of women probably see you and they're like, "She makes it look so easy," you know? And it's like, well, I think what's happening in the world is that women who have had careers, most women are having somewhat of a career before they have children. I feel like in my 18, 19, 20 age, I would have been a great age to become a mother because you just would go right into it and that would be your life, right? And
Yeah.
time would erase. But I feel like if you've had a career or you've had
Mhm.
work and you really have done work that you love, it is something that you have to figure out how to have back in your life. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, like great work. We had Sabrina Vidette back on, who is our Yoni Gem mentorship, Yoni everything. She's such a goddess like you. And she said, she's so grateful that she does work that she's allowed to have her daughter, Ayala, around because she works really hard, but she also does want to be able to have her child, with her when she wants. And so I think that being able to figure out mothering and career is such a amazing thing, and it's not a one size fits all thing. It's very much like figuring out how to do it for you,
Yes.
what your goals are.
Absolutely. And there's nobody who can give you like the playbook or a manual on it. Everybody's uniquely different. Everybody's story is uniquely different. What's comfortable for them. Like I was the type of mom that like 2 weeks after giving birth, I'm like, I want to get outside. I want to do things. And people were like, literally were like, wait, why are you bringing that baby outside? Is that dangerous? Like there's so much criticism and like unwarranted feedback you get as a new mom that I always am so much more mindful of that now. And whenever I see a new mom or a pregnant person, I'm always just like, do what feels good for you and like try to
Totally.
just liberate people because you know it's right. And for me, staying in the house was going to make me depressed and it's going to bring me down. Whereas getting out, getting fresh air, bringing Otto with me as I'm like working out and doing things that made me feel like myself. So that was important.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that the same can be said for career with women. Like we're just so told what to do and pursue. So I think what you choose to do for a career, people always say like, will you hire me or will you help me with this company? It's like, well, are you doing what you love to do?
What fills your belly with like excitement and drive? What do you really feel passionate about doing? And if you don't feel that, either cater to something that does make you feel like that or cater to something that gives you the time to do something that makes you feel like that. Because you
Right.
can't always have both. Sometimes you won't be able to do that with what you do, but if you find a role that does give you more flexibility where you can focus on something you really are passionate about, that could be good too. So it depends. But I know you say you speak to women all the time who are trying to take their business to the next level. I'm sure like just getting them to even hone in on what is it that they want? Like what is your why?
Well, that's why I start like, where do you want to be in 5 years with this company? Like, women build businesses for very different reasons than men do, actually. I'm reading
Mm,
around called Rising Tide Financing Strategies for Female Owned Firms, which I strongly recommend everyone read. But it reaffirmed a lot of my beliefs around how difficult it is for women to raise capital, but also why we're building companies, right?
mm.
Many women that I talk to, 1 in 5, maybe 1 in 10 sometimes will say, I want to like exit this company for hundreds of millions of dollars and invest in more women. There are a lot of us out there, but a lot of women are trying to build places where their kids can work or they want to live in their purpose or they follow their curiosity, which I always recommend when women don't know what to do and they found something that rejuvenates them and they want to stay in that curiosity discovery space. And I think knowing where you're wanting to go, it helps you in those earlier stages. So, okay, so I feel like there might be another book coming out soon.
Well, yes,
Now
there is.
I'm smelling second book vibes.
Yeah, well, you're onto something because I am gonna be releasing in 2025, I think around March, that's my goal, is to release the remastered version of How to Master LinkedIn 2025 edition. Because what I released in 2019, while it's still valuable and a lot of the things in there are still applicable, so much has changed.
So
So
much.
much had to change on the platform, what to do, what not to do, how to use it. So I'm releasing a remastered version, but I know you're thinking about another book, and that is still percolating because I still want to have like my actual like my book, but I'm not there.
Your memoir.
Yes.
You're like,
What?
yeah, my memoir has been 15 years in the making, and I'm like, it just needs a better ending.
That's why people have more than one. I've noticed people
Yes.
have like multiple like volumes of their memoir.
Totally. My favorite author is this guy, Robert Johnson. He's a Jungian analyst. And the reason I love him the most is because his books are never more than 100 pages. They are big font. They're this big. And
Like me.
you can get through them in 2 sittings. And you're like, oh, I accomplished something. I learned something. Like you think about what he talks about. This book, Owning Your Own Shadow, like changed my life. I read it in one
Ooh,
bath, basically. The bath was very cold by the end of it, but I was like, I gotta get through this book. It's so good.
yes.
I think 2019, there was a meme that somebody sent to me because I've been saying, like, what year is it?
Oh, I know. Or like, how old am I? Like, now I'm like, oh my god.
I feel like time is so not real. But
Yeah.
somebody sent me a meme last year. I have to see if I can find it. Maybe it was this year. My 2023 goals are the same as my 2022 goals because my 2021 goals got offset by my 2020 experience with COVID, which actually was
Mhm.
offset in 2019 when the whole world paused. So actually my goals in 2025 are very similar to 2019, but the world is totally different. So I love a remastered book. We're living in a totally different world than
Yes.
2019, even though it feels like 2019 was 3 minutes ago, unless you had kids. Which I
Yeah.
guess there's 2
Still
people in
does.
the world, people who had kids in COVID and people who didn't have kids in COVID.
I didn't either, but literally, I still can't
Okay,
believe I'm a mom. Like, forget that. But
okay,
I'm like,
and
I'm a
you're like the one who somehow productively got married and had a kid post-COVID, because most of the women who were single in 2019 who are still single now were like, "What's just happening?"
oh my gosh. Yeah. I was talking to my husband today and I was like, to be single in 2025 would look very different than we met in 2015. And I'm like, we met on Tinder too, which is like very new age, with the
You are the
dating apps
30th
and
person this
things.
week that told me you met on Tinder. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm not allowed on Tinder. I put a bikini picture up on there and they booted me off.
They booted you off. I back then you could do that.
I just don't think I'm supposed to be on dating apps, to be honest.
I feel like you're the type of person who has the aura where like you will meet the most incredible person in like an airport or like walking
Yeah.
briskly. I just feel like you're the type of person who would meet such a cool person in real life.
I would also I'll attract sociopaths too. Anyways, we digress. Let's go back to your story. I want to hear like all the things that you
O-
are envisioning for yourself. So give us like the 2025 vision.
Okay, I'll break it into some segments because the first segment is what I like to call my calling.
Oh, I love that.
First thing is I love speaking and I love stages and events and conferences and talks. So my 2025 plan is how can I get onto more stages, talk to more companies, be a part of more organizations and speak to more people? Because honestly, like that gives me the closest feeling that I've ever had to playing professional tennis. is that preparation to speak, getting up on stage, delivering a message with a call to action, whether I'm there to talk about leadership, talk about LinkedIn, talk about mindset, talk about being an athlete, overcoming obstacles, and then delivering a talk, and then ending the talk, and then getting ready for the next one. So my goal in 2025 is to take my keynoting to the next level and have that be a major part of what I'm doing.
I totally see that for you. You're a wordsmith, right? You've written a book, and I think you're in the perfect place to do that. I love that idea for you.
Yes.
So
So
that's the
I'm
perfect vision.
That's the first thing, and that's one of the things that I wanna continue to strive towards. Because as you and I both know, being a keynote speaker at a high level, it involves some travel, but there's only a handful of things you can do every month, so I like that that can happen in conjunction with a lot of the other things that I'm doing, so I love doing that, so that's one thing. The next thing is bringing more workshops to the masses, and what I really wanna start doing, and I put it into the LinkedIn universe, I think it was last week, is I wanna start working with more colleges and
Mm.
basically work with student athletes. Because if I think back to and think about yourself, think back to like when you were at college age, were you thinking about LinkedIn? Were you thinking about like how to set yourself up for your career? You're probably thinking, I need to get an internship or like there's little things, but actually putting in the focus of building your LinkedIn to the point where when you graduate, it's in a spot where you can actually take action with it. I think a lot of students are missing out on that. So I'm going to also start working with a lot more colleges and universities, student athletes, and do workshops with different colleges across the country. So I'm really excited about that too.
I really like it when I'm like get introduced to an intern and their LinkedIn page isn't just like the college that they're going into, but what they're
Yeah, student.
interested in,
Yeah.
where they're working, what job did you have in high school, what are your areas of curiosity and interest. I think college level kids, even without a ton of experience, can have very well thought out, provoking pages that allow them to win work that really will change the direction that they're going in their lives. I love that. That's really smart.
Yeah. So that's something I want to do and really focus a lot more on. And then lastly, having a rebrand. I'm doing like a brand relaunch in March for Headstrong and ultimately like taking it to the next level of what I can do. So I've already done a big brand photo shoot for it. I've been kind of teasing things here or there. So I'm excited to release that out there and it's going to be coming up soon. I'm trying to get it all together in conjunction with the book remastering relaunch too at the same time and then just put it really out there to everybody. I really want to continue to work with amazing companies in 2025. The biggest joy I get is when a company reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we'd love for you to do a workshop for our employees. We want to help them with their LinkedIn branding. We want to help us attract better talent into our company." And these are things that a lot of people are confused about because they think LinkedIn is only to get on somewhere else, but companies need to be leveraging it to keep good talent and to attract good talent. And if companies' pages and they're not doing the right things, they're going to get passed up on for other companies. So I love doing that as well. And I just think that in 2025, I'm going to be a lot of places traveling, but I'm also going to be doing a ton of stuff virtually. And I love the fact that with what we've learned through COVID and doing things virtually, you can still reach so many people and not have to leave where you are. And for me, as a new mom, that works really, really well.
I know what I am like every day. I'm like, dear universe, thank you so much for COVID because I get to work and build a financial firm from the Tetons. And that is the coolest thing ever. And
Yeah.
I'm the
Through
first
Zoom.
generation of business people who can do that. So it's like so cool, right? I can like
Yeah.
for 14 hours and go hike in the mountains. It's just great. I think you should teach a workshop to all of our clients. We're at 25 clients and 5 funds now. So I
Oh, invite
think
me.
yeah, let's do a workshop with you. We'll keep everyone posted. I think we could do one that's geared towards with females for just
Yeah.
society, and then we could do one at Permaculture Capital for setting up your business pages.
Yep.
A lot of the companies we help, their LinkedIn pages are good, but they are not great. And I have to tell you, a lot of the people we bring on, they could really use some help. We could have you teach another class on our website. I love the idea of women who have attained skills to build courses online. I do so many classes online now. Like I did a voice opening activation workshop, right? Because in
Oh,
my family, the worse the birthday song sounds, the better year you have because we're all such bad singers, but then I'll be in the shower and I'll be like, I have the best voice, like this move, I just don't know how to use it. So I like signed up for a course to do that. Then I did this like 10-day MBA like challenge, like to
Yeah.
test my skills around MBA skills. But then I was like, it would be great if there was like a course because I feel like I've had two School of Hard Knocks MBAs, but as I dug into LinkedIn and as I started interviewing people, I realized the bias I don't like against me is a bias I hold other people to, which is
Mm.
if you study business. What are you interested around the MBA principles? So I don't have those things. Why am I judging people on that? Right. So then I'm like, maybe I should get it. Um, and I'm like, I just don't want to spend $200,000 on school.
I honestly like, you and I talking, I don't know how relevant that will be in the next 5 years.
I
Honestly,
think
like being in so much debt, going into putting all this money into an education when so much can be found online or with different people. And I feel like things are shifting. Like, unless you're trying to be maybe a lawyer or a doctor or
right.
certain
PhD.
fields, that sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know how beneficial that would be to put so much money into these things that you can learn in so many different ways and learn by doing and learn by being around others. And I don't know.
I think it's for the cost of an Ivy League
Oh,
degree, which is close to two to $500,000 by the time you do an undergraduate and an MBA. I think you could invest that and in 20 years have
yeah. And it's like, what's the
What?
goal? Is the goal just to be
Yeah.
rich?
Yeah,
If
like,
your
what's the
goals
goal?
are to be wealthy and to have success, do you really need that? Or is that for the clout, for the notoriety, because your parents want you to do it? Like, it's different. You have to reassess. And when we were talking about, when you were saying about the female founders you talk to, it's like, what is your why? Like, why are you doing it? Think about like, what is it about that Harvard degree that you want so badly? Is it because it'll open doors for you? Is it because it'll get you this job? Is it like, why? Because if you're trying to make a lot of money, you could be a plumber and make multiple six figures. Like, it just depends.
Totally, totally. I wrote a blog very early on in the podcast. I'll link it in the show notes with everything else that we're talking about. But it was about how college is basically a scam unless you're going to become a doctor. You could go and work with somebody and find the most amazing mentors. I also think the female community, female women are not a niche, okay? We're more than half of the population. But there is deeper connectivity. And I think the reason people really do MBAs because they're going to want to launch companies is really for the network. So I think the Ivy League community makes a lot of sense because they are attached to venture studios and you do get a lot of support. But I think you also have to really use that time. Like you see a lot of people going to school in their college years and you're like, what are you doing? Just like hemorrhaging money for fun. I think education should be free. I think Chelsea Shields, who on her first season episode she did a really good job of explaining how she got 2 PhDs and a master's degree for free. She
Mm,
basically committed to doing 2 PhDs at the college and they gave her all 3. So there's always like workarounds, right? But I definitely am not going to any college unless they just invite me there. After this much life experience, they're going to have to scholarship my ass all the way through. But there
be a
are
doctor of
so
anything.
many there's so many, like, one of Chelsea's is social anthropology. She went and studied behavior in humans, right? It's, like, so interesting. I didn't even know in my teens and 20s that you could find something like that to get a PhD and you could just be paid to study people. Like, that's so cool. Same with
Yeah.
what I do now. I didn't know you could get paid to go in and communicate for companies to investors and set up their marketing, and I didn't know that investor relations was a thing in my 20s, but yeah, maybe you and I will both be doing a free PhD together at some point.
Maybe. That just made me think there's an opportunity there from a LinkedIn standpoint. They already have LinkedIn Learning, which is one level down, but think of all of the different roles that you, like, to your point, you didn't know that existed when you were 20. Like, I didn't know there's a ton of different things, but if there were people talking about it, I know TikTok is also blowing up with all these different things you can do and kind of exposing companies and roles that are just not as popular, but now they're becoming more popular. It's just like there's just so much there's an opportunity for that on social media.
I don't know if TikTok's gonna be a thing. I think they're trying to ban
Mm.
it in America now, which I think half the
Yeah.
population is on LinkedIn or TikTok. I can't even talk. Um, LinkedIn. I
She
called it
did.
TikTok. That's funny. I think I don't actually have TikTok on my phone, and it's because my friends always send it to me, and I'm like, "It's a Chinese-owned app. I'm a banker. I can't have it on this phone." But second,
Too
I
addicting.
cannot learn one more social media thing. Just to throw this out there for whoever wants to come and build my TikTok page as an intern, we could probably make a lot of money. This guy sent me a video of me when I was on Top Model on the catwalk. It has 20 million views. And I was
You're like,
like
"Where's my money?
I
Give me
was like,
some
"What? Are
money."
you making money off of this?" And then he ghosted.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
I'm
Yeah.
sure he did. And I'm like, "You need to put that into, like, decision access fund if you're making money off of my likeliness." And he's disappeared. But yeah, so whoever wants to help me, like, start a late TikTok, please do. I went to college in San Francisco, and I was on Friendster. And if I feel like all the social media apps should pay any person, the 30,000 people who are on Friendster, like $1 million a year because we started it.
Yeah.
You're the OGs of social media.
I had a MySpace back when we used to like, you have to like code it and do like,
Yeah.
make your page all
Yeah, the
cool. Like
coding.
I knew like low level coding because my page like lit up and sparkled and had all types of stuff. Like, I don't know what happened to those skills, but back then I was like all in there. And yeah, so
And you could have, like, music on the top.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I remember. Can anyone even get into their MySpace
I
still?
don't know. I don't even know what my login is. Like,
I
honestly, it would
think
be
I think my
interesting to see.
login would, like, M butterflies at AOL or something.
Mine was Tennis Girl 107.
Look at us now.
Yeah, now literally social media is everything. And I'm
I
like,
know.
we have to think about how this is going to change everything and with AI coming in and I'm sure you're a lot of the companies you talk to do you have a lot of founders that are incorporating AI into what they're doing?
Well, I had an AI client for about 6 months, and I know more about AI than I ever wanted to know. But what I do know about AI, and I know that every conference you go to, no matter what topic it is, marketing, cannabis, sports, somehow AI
Takes over.
takes over all the panels. And I think people have a real misunderstanding about AI. I think we also need to be really careful of how we differentiate machine learning to artificial intelligence. And then we also really need to be careful about who we let or who is programming the AI. Because if our world is largely controlled by tech developers and tech founders, and then those tech founders, because they're billionaires, get to program the AI, it really tells us where the future is going to go. Right. And
Yep.
I think we can do better than that. I think we should be more inclusive with all technology. One of the things I will say is post COVID, I've been starting to go to conferences, like you're saying. And actually, some of the deepest and the best connections I've made in the last 2 years were doing conferences. There's this craving to have human interaction. But to that
Mhm.
point, I think, how do you prepare your LinkedIn for when you're going to a conference? How do you make sure you're time budgeting while you're conferencing with your AI, with your posting, right? Because I know my LinkedIn etiquette around conferences could be a trillion times better, which would make my conferences way more productive. This is how my conference experiences go.
Okay.
I post on LinkedIn, I'm going to a conference. About 30 people tell me that they're going to be there too. We make a plan to meet. It doesn't happen. I maybe run into 3 or 4 of them. Usually the conferences are all men because that's who has the budget to go. And so the 40 women who are at the conference end up just sticking together and we all meet each other anyways. Then at the end, I end up posting pictures and tagging all the women. So I make sure I'm staying in touch with them. And then we just follow each other on LinkedIn. So it's so interesting because I'm like, there could be a better LinkedIn protocol for conferencing. That could be your 3rd book.
Yeah, maybe, but that sounded actually pretty cool that you ended up finding everybody and then you still end up staying connected because 'cause you're so good at connecting women.
See, but you put in, like, all this work to, like, message everyone before and tell everyone, and then all the plans go to crap to meet, but then you're all in the same room at the very end anyways. So that's, like, one of those silver linings of being a female business person when the business world is still very masculine. I mean, healthcare, I think you've got more even. Education,
Mhm.
you've got more even numbers. But when you're in male-dominated fields, go to conferences, find the women, sit in a room, like sit in the bar, like get some appetizers and learn about each other. Those are your best allies for the next 6 months. I'm really good friends now with some of the women I met last year at conferences. They feel like almost like sisters to me at this point. So some are helping me with business, some are investing, some are on the podcast. I think in person events and conferences are really important, but you have to leave a little room for sparkle and magic. If you try to plan every single thing out, you miss out on some of the most important connections. And almost every conference you go to now, you'll find that they'll do like a women's breakfast or a women's
Mhm.
dinner. Like, look for the women's activities at those things, especially if you go to a conference alone, because you find another woman who's alone there and then you work rooms to get you learn about each other and then you start networking together. So wing women at conferences is also a great suggestion. But how you integrate that with your LinkedIn, I still quite haven't quite figured that part out.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like some techniques of what you can do while you're at the conference, but let me think about like LinkedIn. So you say that you already like let people know that you're going to be going to this conference. Do you
Sometimes
ever
sometimes I'm
I'm s-
terrible. Like I didn't make a post about Art Basel. It was total chaos.
Yeah,
Meetings for work, and I still haven't posted about it because there's
so
17,000
many
pictures
things.
and stuff people, so I'm like, you've gotta have a protocol for LinkedIn for these things, I feel like, because it's a
Yeah.
huge widely missed opportunity if I don't post about it. But now it's been 2 weeks, people are like, "Why are you posting 2 weeks later?" So
No, I think it's still within the realm because you got the holidays and things. You can do
Oh,
like a
good,
recap.
okay.
So you're not too late. You're not too late, but like in advance, letting people know that you're going to be going to something big like that. I think the biggest thing is like not going into it with so much pressure. Like I need to meet all these people at this event. Like if you're a woman who's going to a conference, make a goal of I want to make one or two meaningful connections at this conference because a lot of people make the mistake with like networking or events is like I got to talk to so many different people and then maybe out of all these people I'll get one. Sometimes it only takes one or two really good connections to make that whole conference worth it. So like
Totally.
if you make a strong connection with somebody, like build on that and be strong with it, but then don't put so much pressure that you need to keep doing that over and over again because people also feel like you probably felt this before. Have you ever been at a networking event or a conference and somebody's like approaching you, but it's very aggressive as if they're like trying to connect
Right.
with you because they
And
feel
then,
like
like
you could be somebody I need,
and
you
then they,
know?
like,
Like,
stick their phone into your phone, you're like, "This is kind of like a violation, like, I don't
yeah,
want to touch my phone." And then,
yeah,
like,
you're
you're
scamming me.
having you
Like,
only told them one thing about yourself, and they're like, "No, no use to me, but give me your context," and then they, like, walk away, you're like, "That's a terrible
yeah, it's like
example."
speed dating on crack, but like
You're like,
conference style.
"I'm
Like
not
it's
looking like that at all."
No, like, and people gotta start getting creative. Like, is there something unique about what they're wearing? Can you comment on it? Can you, like, build something small to kind of open the door and small talk a little bit, just kinda gauge? But it's just I think that's
Also,
an area that everybody can
listening.
improve on. Listening.
Standing in circles and listening to other people talk to each other is great because then you don't have to be stuck in a conversation and you
You
can
could just drift away.
identify, you can look at how they treat each other and see if you even want
Mhm.
to talk to them or work with them. Then you kind of hear what they're doing. You're like, oh, there's some synergy there. There's some synergy there. And kind of get their name. Like you can do stuff while they
Mhm.
talk. So I like that approach too, which has never been my strong suit, but I'm getting better at.
Yeah, and honestly, like, going back to, like, what you can do on LinkedIn, you can obviously let people know that you're going to be going to an event. Typically, like, a lot of events are already on LinkedIn, so you can actually, like, post within that event page that you're going and leverage I know you've done this in the past, I feel like it's worked well, but let people know, "Hey, I'm gonna be at this breakfast, or I'm gonna be at this happy hour," and, like, be there, but don't, like and people, "Oh," and they know, like, you're the focal point, like, to go there, but if plans get mixed up and things in that nature, like, it's okay, like, it'll be fine, and then to your point, just, like, recap it after. Sometimes to
And like
see
let the magic happen, you
let the
know?
magic happen, and then if everybody was at that conference, you all have some like, if there was a talk that was really impactful, strike up conversation with the people who are going and say, "Here are the couple key points I loved about that talk. What did you think?" And then you're, like, creating a conversation, even if you don't know the person, you didn't get to meet them at the conference, but you were at the same conference, you saw the same keynote, maybe you could, like, use that to kind of get a get in there if you didn't have that connection before.
I'll reach out to the keynote too and be like, I love that. I would love to get a conversation with you. Here's the way I see us aligning.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
is also really great from conferences as well. If you know, that person's going to get mobbed after they get off the stage, but you can reach out later. I think one of
Yep.
the women in my network who does one of the greatest jobs of recapping and sharing her contacts that she meets, and I follow a lot of incredible women because of her, is Jessica Carr with kind of
Mm,
ventures. She always has really great women, lots of investors, lots of creatives, lots of founders. She's not always necessarily investing in them. She shares. She obviously cares, right? She's very clear with their thesis, but she has conversation. So I like seeing women do that where they're good at posting who was there because a lot of women can't afford to go to conferences. But if you follow women who are doing the circuit in that sector, you can do a lot of work on LinkedIn just through that mechanism alone, which is what
yeah.
I do like my first 6 months building the company because I just moved. It was like, well, I can't go to all these conferences, but I can follow the women who I know are going, follow
Hmm.
their posts, and that really can help me find the right people. Who, had I been there, I would have liked to have met that person. And that
Yeah.
you save tens of thousands of dollars. I always respond to you, which is an issue. So always good to meet people in person when you have the budget for it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And honestly, like doing a good conference recap, you always get so many amazing keys from a conference, whether it be the keynote speaker or a topic that resonated with you, but giving your own take on it is the way that you build that credibility on LinkedIn. And then people are gonna hear what you're saying and then be interested in like, oh, maybe next year I should go to that conference, or just it just helps you strike up conversations.
Do you think that LinkedIn's ever gonna, like, change or that there's gonna be something better than LinkedIn specifically around females? Is there gonna be an Instagram that comes out of Facebook the way like, is there gonna be something that comes out of LinkedIn that's kinda like the Instagram of it, right?
I know what you're saying. That is a good question. What I do feel like is gonna happen is LinkedIn is gonna continue to change and evolve, and we're going to see LinkedIn become a lot more geared towards video and a lot more similar to some of the video platforms that are out there. Because really LinkedIn's owned by Microsoft, so they're seeing, like, what everybody's doing. It's necessarily, like, just for, like, women. Necessarily think that there's a couple, like, organizations out there that are, like, catering towards, like, high executive women. I know, like, have you heard of, like, Chief? Have you heard of
Yeah,
them?
and
They're
we
doing something like that. Yeah, there's a couple that are doing that, but it's still different because with LinkedIn being so global and they've, like, been expanding and growing and growing, I don't know if anything will branch off, but I can't say never because we saw what happened with MySpace and then Facebook and then
well, Friendster, MySpace,
Friendster.
Facebook, Instagram, but now the algorithm feels so controlled. Like that's the other thing I
Yes.
don't like about LinkedIn is I'm starting to have to really like remember to go and follow people. And I make a list of like my top 10 influencers and like my algorithm doesn't show me them. So I actually actively go to them. But even when I go to them a lot now, they still don't show up, even if I'm liking everything that they're posting. So it's just, I don't know if it's like too many things on LinkedIn now. One of the other things I didn't wanna forget about conferences, just to go back to help women that are listening and men, of course, too, was and I think this really aligns with you, is what I've noticed with my daily practice and when I go into group settings, because I'm highly sensitive, so I can very easily get thrown off, is that meditation of getting into a great space before you engage with people is like do or die, right? So going into a conference and having a positive, happy face and being nice to
Mhm.
people and being curious about other people and not just talking about yourself, being in that headspace where you can be super positive, there's a time and place to be like overly positive, right? You're not always going to talk about positive things at conferences, but showing up into the room with your light is so much more effective than going in there with all your accolades and being rushed and then like standing in a corner by yourself, right? So I think, and it happens, because you're like, I just had to fly here and I dropped all my stuff up and my dog's sick and now I have to do this and then I'm going to get ready and now I'm in the room. And you take any time to
Get
care about
ready.
why you're there and think about your visualization to going into that. I use Joe Dispenza's morning and evening meditations. Even on days I don't want to do it, I just do it because it's going to get me into that attraction, positive mindset where I'm working towards my future, not trying to offset my past. So I think that's something also really important for maybe you and your company to talk to you about when you go to
Yes.
when you come onto LinkedIn and how you present yourself from a mindset place. There's
Mhm.
a lot of mental health, like negative mental health stuff going around on LinkedIn, and the people posting don't even know that they're doing it.
Yes. There's so much company bashing, leadership bashing, manager bashing. A lot of it's clickbait too, because they know that there's so many people on the platform who've experienced either a traumatic loss, whether they've lost their job or they've been fired, and or they've had a terrible experience with the boss or manager. So they put stuff out there that they know will trigger people into just making the comments just go crazy. And you have to think, does me commenting on this help change my situation? Is it going to bring me anything good? Is it going to bring me anything positive? Or am I just adding into this like negativity fest, which is not helpful? So, to your point of like getting into the right mental state, you should get into the right mental state when you go onto LinkedIn too, because
100%.
yeah,
Like,
you really
don't be
should.
writing crazy comments. I've done it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. And I wanted to bring this up because I know you mentioned like, I'm not seeing the people I'm following, I'm only seeing like a bunch of random. Do you know that on your page you can I just pulled it up so I could like remember what it's called. You can sort by your top things like your top people or your recent.
I'm making you a co-host if you
Mhm.
want to share.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew this. Over here, you can click like
Oh,
the top versus recent. And if you hit top, you're going to see for all of the like influencers or key people you're following on LinkedIn, most likely you'll see their stuff. But if you see recent, you'll see anybody who's posted that you're connected to's recent posts.
well, let's just go over what just came up on here, right? Because this is my exact point about LinkedIn and how it's changing. You're looking at what one of your contacts like, which is about somebody trauma dumping about their dad
Yeah.
who,
It's stuck.
like, it's so far away. Like, what is the end point? Relentlessly optimistic. The guy's post is about, he just starts out talking about negative things. Like, this is my whole point. I feel like on LinkedIn, I'm starting to have to be asked to carry shadow for people instead of integrate creativity and collaborate with them. And that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it. It's almost become a new Facebook.
What you can do too, if you start to see a lot of that, is you can hit not interested and it will
Yes.
also start to limit the stuff that's like that. And then if you do that enough, it'll start to like curate.
LinkedIn is a beast now. Is there something better for us? This is what we've got the best to work with right now. I mean, I think you would be the perfect person since you're an expert in it to like maybe do another platform. But
Uh,
we'll talk
it's
about
gonna be
that when Otto's off to college, okay?
yes, but
But when you're
okay.
an expert in something like LinkedIn and mindset, I think that it's interesting that you're drawn to that because I think a big reason a lot of people don't post about themselves or their successes is because of their mindset, right? Like their self-worth and not being in a state of deserving, right? So I love the two together for you. I think it's so cool that on the last episode we talked about the book and now your whole career has really
Yes.
built around that. That's really cool.
Yeah, honestly, like I never if you would have asked me 5 years ago, would I be doing what I'm doing today? It would be absolutely no. I knew I was gonna be doing something involved with mindset and helping people with that because I love that and that's what brings me joy, but to mix that with a tangible thing like LinkedIn and knowing that LinkedIn is a path for people when it comes to their career, their aspirations, but then also in their business and how to take that to the next level. So I love that I get to work with those things together and be the coach. Like I love to coach, I love to help, I love to inspire, and I can use these tangible things to do that versus just being like a true just like mindset coach, which is very broad, which I did for a little bit, but I realized that this actually brings me even more joy because I can see the results in them getting the new
Right.
role or getting promoted.
Tactile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you're niching out, and I think that that's really great. One of the women whose content is great around trauma in the workplace, and she was on our season 1. We're gonna do a season 2 episode with her. Her name's Allison Sabula. Her podcast
Mm,
is all about ACEs. We just had a catch up, but her content is very good, very resource oriented. So she
good.
gives a lot of tools. She gives a lot of workshops and conferences. So if you are experiencing something in the workplace and you're looking for better content around that on LinkedIn, she's a good one for that. She's been through a few toxic workplace experiences herself, but also she's a master in the resources around it. And I feel like the posts she makes are extremely productive. You know, these things take part of our time. So what we don't want social media doing is using us. We want to use it. And
Yes.
so I still think having your top 10 that you check in on is
Yes.
almost more productive than relying on the feed at this point. It would be great if you could just put, let me just tell you who to put in my feed, okay?
Yeah, literally. Oh, well, there's another thing too. You can favorite people. I don't know if you have you done that?
I think I've done that with
Okay.
those top 10. I still don't get them as much as I'd like. It would just be great if you could be like, I don't want to see what the people I am following like, okay? I'll tell you what I like.
Yeah,
I like
literally.
them, but I don't necessarily like what they like. We have different taste.
I just with the way that things are moving, I feel like it's gonna gear more towards an ad like, there's gonna be more ads on it, which is like, "No, we don't wanna see ads. We don't wanna see authenticity and genuineness," and I don't know, these companies get so money hungry and they just wanna keep going and going, and since it's a part of a publicly traded company, they have to keep showing profit and profit and profit, so I think that the more authentic posts that you can do and just I just feel like it's gonna continue to shift in that monetization way.
You're a clear master of tips and how to make your LinkedIn feed work for you too. Maybe that's your fourth book. I think your 2025 optimization, you having a way to give tips for increasing how it's functioning for you. Obviously, that's what you're doing, but not just on how you build it, but like those little settings, right? It
Yes.
matters. I think at some point in the future, if human beings are going to prevail, we've got to just realize that the public market reporting, right, doesn't leave much room for correction. And I really do think that, you know, profit for the sake of profit isn't just why do we have to have the increased profit with a degraded product, right? And part of that is that the consumer, us, we have to be willing to pay to get rid of that stuff. So I'm already paying $100 a month for LinkedIn. Why can't I control
Right, for the
my
premium
the
one.
content, right? Like most people I know pay the $100 for premium, right? But with that, it's not expensive, it's not cheap. It's a business expense. And I think most people doing that, they're out in Sales Navigator, which feels like a different universe. But I don't know. I think as paying consumers, we
Have more control.
yeah, we get more control. I also, not to sit on a soapbox, but I was like thinking about this the other day with the phone companies. Cause I'm like,
Mm,
let's get this straight. I pay $2,000 for a camera that on a phone that like hardly works. I pay $110 a month for service or $50 a month, depending on who you're.
we
Yeah.
got
They mine my data and sell it to technology companies against. I don't want them doing that, right? They should be paying me to have this phone if they're going to mine my data and record my calls and listen to what I'm saying. I've got all my microphones turned off. I just say random words now just to see if it's still listening to me with all my
it probably
microphones
still
off.
is.
I like will say panda. And then the next day there's like 30 pandas in different apps on my phone. Like, I didn't give you permission to do that. Right.
Yeah, it's
So
bad.
it it's bad. At what point do we get control back? It does seem all of it seems a little bit out of control. But again, having resources like you who can come and tell us, how do I make this work for me? It feel like it's using me. I want to make it really
Yeah,
work for me. That is like awesome. I love that for you.
thank you, and I plan to do that. I plan to help people, give them all the little tips and tricks that they need so that they can have people really be in their inbox trying to work with them instead of, "Oh, I'm, like, messaging all these people and outreaching, and I'm not getting anything back." If you have your page and your content set up right, you will have people in your inbox, and your inbox is absolutely a pot of gold. You just have to sift through it to find those pieces. And
Right.
I'm sure, you have the type of inbox where there's so much spam, but if you kind of make it a practice, I do mine every Saturday, but like a practice of just sifting through, you'll find some great opportunities in your inbox.
I'm on my LinkedIn and my email the same amount, and I don't check it every hour, but I do check it. And I get people that are not nice to me that think I should be on my email all day and think I should be on my LinkedIn all day. But the reality is I have to work. So I need
Yeah,
to find to like actually do my work and talk to people and raise money and build businesses, right?
right.
So there's a sense of entitlement that comes through. I find it so funny
Mhm.
that on LinkedIn and the emails now, I can really like very quickly pick up on people's personalities.
Wow, I know.
Oh, wow, like you have an entitlement going on here to my response to your emails. Like that is super interesting. You're gonna pay for me to care.
I start, like, giving voice notes back.
I think voice notes are going to come through email, and then I'm basically just going to retire and go totally off grid. I think there's like a little bit of an invasiveness to voice notes, like I didn't actually want, I'm texting you because I actually don't want the spiritual connection. Something we talked so much on this podcast this season about this is this concept that I'm writing a lot about, which will probably be the name of my first book, actually, because I don't know if my memoir is ever going to come out. I keep saying it's going to come out. I've been
It
saying it.
will.
Maybe you can be my my coach for my book. But I think spiritual equity. So that's the thing that separates most women, females from male with our conditioning, right? Because men have been conditioned. You don't have to like what you do, but you do have to provide, right?
Mm.
Women have been conditioned. You got to love what you do. You got to work in your purpose. I think also we find it impossible to work on things that we don't have our passion and our spiritual elements around. So I think like this spiritual equity is something that I've been talking around a lot that has a lot to do with what we're talking about, right? Because if people can sense your spiritual equity on your LinkedIn, they're much more inclined to reach out. I have had quite a few people reach out to me over the last year since I've changed my language. The first language in my bio, I launched my firm because I just really wanted to work with women, was like, if you do not have a woman in the C suite outside of compliance, do not message me. And then I was like, that's, and people were like, I love that. And some people I know were like, block, like, so it's like my, I'm like turning people off and I'm exciting people. How about we come into the middle and we say something
Middle.
in the lines of, if you're struggling placing women into your C suite operation, you think that there aren't any out there, or you're afraid of women, which is very normal. Like, we are an agency that will help you find those women, right? We'll help you find the right people for your firm, whether it's an investor for your cap table or at Decision Society to work trading time for equity. And I think what you're doing actually could really align well with what we're building at Decision Society. I think there's a lot of ways for us to work together, but I think that have that like spiritual equity component
Mhm.
coming through your LinkedIn page and your website is really important for everybody, male and female, because people have to know why you're doing this too. I think most
Right.
people just assume everyone does everything for money, but the world is a funny place. And if people
Yeah.
aren't motivated by the money, people should know that. People should know what are those things that are motivating you versus what's the thing that is going to make me money, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would love that. I would love the opportunity to work closer with you in the new
I know.
year. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunity for that. So I'm super
Okay, so
excited.
anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about? This is your kind of vocal space. I'm going to not talk, but I would love for you to just kind of talk freely to the listeners, about your story or your messaging and maybe some of your spiritual equity and what you're doing.
I would just say that if you're listening to this and you want to make a shift in 2025 to really radically put yourself out there in a better light, I would strongly advise to work with a LinkedIn coach to optimize your profile because that is ultimately the first thing that anybody's going to look at. It's the first thing that they're going to see when they stumble across you. And what you have there is ultimately going to be that first impression. So if you take anything that we talked about today, focus on optimizing your profile, focus on working with a coach who can help you do this because it's going to lead to so many opportunities with the right things in place. And take it slow. Don't try to do it all in one day, but make it a focus to do this in 2025 and work with somebody who can help you do that, who can either give you the playbook that you can run with or can help you every step of the way. And I'm actually going to be having a LinkedIn workshop in January, which I'm extremely excited about.
Okay, let's
And
share that in the show notes.
I will give you all those details. And this is an opportunity to join this workshop, learn how to do all of these key things so that you can maximize and optimize and ultimately take your page to the next level so that you can be your best self in 2025.
Yes, I love that. I welcome you to come and write a continued blog after this episode comes out for anything that maybe we didn't talk about. I'm having a hard time managing the blog and the podcast, so I
I'm
love
sure.
I love editors and contributors. Um, but also what I'm finding is a lot of women have more things to say, and this is a platform where women can grow and expand their story. So I hope
I
you'll
love that.
for another episode and
Yeah.
sharing more evolutions of what you're doing. I, for one, am definitely going to be in your January workshop if I can, if it doesn't overlap with anything else. If you like record it and sell it, I'll maybe tap into that and do it on my own timing. But this is so exciting. I'm so happy to be reconnected. I hope I get to meet Otto
I
uh,
know. I gotta
very
see you.
soon and I hope to get you out here and teach you some skiing. I never thought I'd be teaching a professional athlete how to ski. That's a pretty big honor. So I'm looking forward to that.
I would love that. I would love to get a chance to finally like I feel like I know you so well, but to like finally get to meet you in person would be amazing. I was so bummed about Miami, but We will have
We've
we'll
like
have our
missed each other
moments.
20 times in my
No.
But with that being said, I have so many amazing friends in Miami now. So I do feel like it
Love
is
it.
one of those places that I'm not sure if I could live in Miami. I struggle there a little bit. But I do think like being able to regularly come to Miami and see my people there would be such a gift to not only my business, but to just s- so many amazing women.
Would love that. Please come visit
I love
and
it.
we will make it happen. But thank you so much, Melrose. I'm like
Yes,
so
good to see
so
you.
ready.
You are so ready and you're doing it. Keep it going. And
Yeah. I can't wait for this to come out and for everybody to hear it and it'll be great. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Nothing in this podcast is a recommendation. Hey, all you sea stars, goddesses, naiads, and Neptunes, aka the paradisiacs, who care about the important stuff. I hope you all found some inspiration today, and I hope to have your beautiful souls back for our next episode. This podcast supports a beautiful group of humans who gather on full moons, and to find a link for Howl and Heal and for our website with these episodes, details, and blog, head to themelroseshow.com. You can also connect with me on IG at Melrose Wild or at the Melrose Podcast. Again, this is Melrose. I hope after you listen to this conversation, you feel some magic brewing in your own destiny. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe or follow us to get updates on new episodes. And if you love this podcast, the best compliment is to rate us with 5 stars and maybe leave a little love note about how this podcast might be helping you. Have a wonderful day, and may the forces of wholeness and growth be with you all.